Welcome to Sib Spot. Today's stories are from I Don't Work Here, Lady. Story 1 is by Icy Entertainment 18. The Time I Got Chilied. This is an old story, and for reasons that will become clear, I'm not absolutely sure of every single fact. In the summer of my 14th year, my mom sent me to the supermarket about 2 miles away, specifically to buy sour cream and mushroom soup for a recipe she was planning to cook for dinner. I should say that at 14 I was skinny but tall for my age, and it wasn't unusual for people just meeting me to think I was a couple of years older. Anyways, I biked to the store. Mom had specifically wanted a 4-pack of the soup. I didn't bother with a shopping cart since I was only there for a few things. The supermarket had about a dozen shelves of different brands of soup. The brand my mom wanted was in white and red cans, and they all look alike. The varieties weren't alphabetized, and for some time I took cans down to look at them. I found single cans of the mushroom soup, but Mom had told me to get a 4-pack. While I was seeking one of those at chest level, a middle-aged woman bumped me, not hard, with her shopping cart. I stepped closer to the shelves to let her pass, but of course she didn't want to pass. "Hey, you!" she said in a grouchy voice. "Stop stalking for a minute. I want some bullion cubes and the place on the shelf's empty. Go in the back and bring some out." "I don't work here," I said, turning back towards the shelves and finally spotting 4-packs of tomato soup and cream of mushroom soup on the very bottom shelf. I bent down to get the soup, and then my head seemed to explode, and I passed out. I don't really remember much except seeing an eruption of yellow light, and then everything went dark. Literally the next thing I remember is a hefty guy in a white paper cap and a butcher's apron kneeling beside where I'd sprawled on the floor, pushing something against my head, saying, "Easy, easy, don't move." The woman loomed over him, screaming, "Fire him! He attacked me! I'll sue!" Then my head was pounding and I saw what looked like a huge pool of blood all around my face. I tried to ask what happened but kept zoning in and out. Then I was being rolled on a gurney and 2 EMTs in green scrubs were loading me in an ambulance. One of them drove, the other one rode in the back with me and asked me how many fingers she was holding up and shined a flashlight in my eyes. Then she said, "Could you hold this against the wound? Press it tight." It was a gauze pad, and it already felt soaked. My whole head ached. The ride to the hospital didn't seem to take more than 30 seconds, but as I say, my memory is wonky. Somewhere along the way, the EMT asked for my name, address, and phone number, and asked if I had any ID. I had my high school ID card in my wallet, which was in my jeans pocket. By the time they rolled me into the ER, my mom met us yelling, "What happened?" I did not know, but the EMT said a woman in the supermarket threw a heavy can of chili at him and hit him on the side of the head. Why did she do that? I told her I didn't know. We were in a curtained-off area of the ER, and a young doctor came in, looked at me, took some pictures, and told me I needed stitches. He poured something into the wound that sizzled and stung like crazy. He gave me a couple of injections to anesthetize the area. A nurse shaved off some hair over my right ear, then I could sort of feel the doctor putting 9 stitches in to close the wound, but they weren't painful, just weird tugs. He explained that scalp wounds bleed a lot, gave my mom a prescription for a painkiller, and gave her a photocopy of a printout with concussion and wound care instructions on it, told me to rest and drink plenty of fluids and to stay awake until bedtime. But Mom and I couldn't return home right away. As we processed out of the hospital, a policeman met us and told Mom to follow his car back to the supermarket. He took us to an office in the back, where the woman was still complaining loudly that I had attacked her. By then, maybe 2 hours had passed, and she was still screeching. The policeman asked us what happened. All I could say was, this lady wanted me to get out of her way, and I did, but she hit me. "Liar!" the woman yelled, her face beet red. "I told him to get me a jar of bullion cubes from the back of the store, and he cursed at me and slapped me." The guy in the butcher's apron, Mr. Butcher, was there too, and he said, "Officer, that's not true. I saw everything." She spoke to him. He He leaned down to get something from a shelf, and she picked up a jumbo can of chili and threw it hard, laying open his scalp. He didn't touch her. "I didn't hurt him," the woman bellowed. "I was just trying to get his attention. Fire him." Mr. Butcher said, "Lady, he's just a kid. He doesn't even work here. And he didn't slap you. You hurt him plenty." The policeman had me turn sideways to the woman. "Look at the shoulder and the side of his shirt," he said. It was actually a yellow school jersey with black trim, but I had a huge blotch of drying blood on that side. Plus my head was bandaged, and you'd think I was wearing a topless turban. The policeman asked me if I wanted to press charges. I didn't know what to say, but my mom cut in and said, "You're darn right we do." I'd never heard her cursed before, but she was mad. And yes, I'm cutting out swear words again, just to make sure that YouTube doesn't get all angry at me. To top it all off, someone had stolen my bike from the parking lot, and Mom was so upset she even forgot to buy the soup. By the time we were starting for home, everything had sunk in, and I was having a horrible headache and was shaking and trying not to cry. I asked my mom, why would she do that? From what I was wearing, she had to know that I didn't work for the store. My mom, with a death grip on the steering wheel, said, between her teeth, "I'll tell you why a woman like her would do that. It's because she's..." Well, I won't repeat it here, but Mom proved that she knew a lot more curse words than I'd ever supposed. The woman did get arrested and charged with assault, but at the same time she came up for trial, it was fall and school had started. I didn't have to testify, although they did show photos of my blood on the floor of the supermarket and my head wound. I think the doctor took them, but I don't remember for sure. Both Mr. Butcher and my mom were at the trial and testified, though. Later, she said the charge was aggravated assault and battery, but finally the jury convicted the woman for simple assault, and she got 6 months in jail, suspended, a fine, and had to pay my family back for any medical expenses. I was disappointed that she didn't also have to buy me a new bike. Though I didn't have a serious concussion, it does bother me that my memory of the whole thing is so spotty. However, if I want to remind myself of this occasion, I just have to run my fingers along the right side of my head about 2 inches above my ear, and I can still feel the scar. I had a head injury when I was a really, really young child. I think I was like 10 or 11, and we were playing with the neighbor's kids. And the neighbor's kids were in our yard, and we had this really big rock that we were throwing smaller rocks at, but the rocks were still large. And we would throw the rock and then run up and grab the rock and throw it again. And we were taking turns, and I ran up to get the rock, and the neighbor's kid threw one of the large rocks, and it hit me right on the top of the head, and I was bleeding everywhere. But it's crazy. I don't have any memory issues from it like this person did, but you bleed a ton when that sort of thing happens. And all I remember is the flash of light like he was talking about. You get hit in the head and there's this white flash, and then it's kind of fuzzy for a little while. But yeah, I went to the hospital. I had to have a bunch of stitches in the top of my head. Although I don't have a scar up there anymore, when I was in the hospital, I remember that my hair was just covered in blood. It was so nasty. It felt awkward sitting in the emergency room for like 2 hours with just blood all over my hair. But I'll never forget that flash. It was so different from anything else I've ever experienced. Our next story is by Dutch Nuggy. I don't work at this location, lady. Okay, this is only a half I do not work here story because I do work for the company, just not this location. I work for the fast food chain with the big yellow M on the roof, and I had to pick something up at another location. So while I was waiting for the stuff, a customer asked me something, and since it was a question I could easily answer and I was in my work clothes, I helped this person out. And directly after it, I heard an "Excuse me." And when I turned around, there was another lady, so I asked if I could help her. Turned out her order missed a burger, so I went up to the counter and asked one of the employees who actually worked there if they could help the lady with the missing burger. When the lady activated her Karen mode and said, "What kind of lazy manager are you? Always letting your employees do the hard work. Just fetch my burger already. I don't want to wait any longer." So I explained, "Sorry, ma'am, I do not work at this location, so I am not allowed to go into the kitchen, but this employee here will get your burger for you." But she didn't want to believe me and called me lazy again. So she went to get the actual manager, who just walked up with the stuff I had to pick up, and demanded to get me fired. The manager looked at me with a "what" face and decided to play along. She handed me the box of stuff and said, "Stop being so lazy, OP. Here's your stuff. Please leave the restaurant and don't bother coming back." Whilst laughing, I took the box and said my goodbyes to the Karen and went back to my own location. Not the most interesting story, but I thought it was quite funny, so I decided to share it here. I hope this person laughed in their face when that happened. The manager laughing and them laughing, she might have finally realized that they actually don't work in this specific location. I guarantee you they went home and left a review about rude employees too. Guarantee it. Our next story is by Daddy Bad Guy. But I wanted that big bottle of olive oil. This happened a few years ago, but I'm reminded of it every time I buy olive oil. Oh no, their olive oil purchases are tainted now. I live a few blocks from a grocery store, so I will text my family before I leave for work and ask if anyone needs me to pick anything up. Wife, son, and daughter send me their answers, which included that we were out of olive oil. The list is small, so I just grab a basket and enter the store. After getting everything else on my short list, I go looking for the olive oil. This is where things got weird. On the very top shelf, the store is offering a large bottle at a ridiculously low price, so I reach up and grab one. I'm a little over 6 feet tall with long arms, and it was a bit of a stretch for me. After placing the bottle in my basket, I hear from behind me in a very soft and polite voice, "Excuse me, young man." Now, I was just shy of 50 at the time, and it had been a long time since anyone called me a young man, so at first I thought the person was talking to someone else. As I turned around, I see someone's tiny grandma, or great-grandma, looking up at me and smiling. She was a tiny little thing of not quite 5 feet tall. She then said, "I saw you were able to reach that bottle, and I was wondering if you could see if there were any more left." So I told her that there was one more left, and asked if she'd like me to get it down for her. She said, "Yes, please." So I grabbed the last bottle and handed it to her. She said that she had seen what a wonderful deal it was, but there was no way she could have reached it, and proceeded to thank me profusely. I said it was my pleasure, and thought it was a nice little interaction at the end of my day. It doesn't end there. Then things got weird. As polite grandma lady walks away, from behind me I hear someone say tersely, "Get me one of those bottles." I spin around and a woman is staring at me, so I say, "Excuse me?" She continued, "One of those large bottles of olive oil. Get one down for me." I told her there weren't any more, and then she tried to take the bottle from my basket. I jerked the basket away and said, "What the heck do you think you're doing?" She told me that I should give her mine since I could just go in the back and look for more. Now, I am dressed in khakis and a button-down shirt. Typical middle-aged man, business casual. Nothing like the employees at the store, so I'm confused. Just as I'm about to say something she really won't like, one of the managers comes out of the back and heads towards the front of the store through this aisle. He and I know each other in passing since I'm in the store a lot, usually exchanging a head nod, a smile, and a "how's your day?" She immediately latched onto him and said, "Your employee swore at me and refused to give me the last big bottle of olive oil." He looked at me, looked at my basket, and then looked back at me with a questioning look on his face. I just shook my head and shrugged my shoulders. He politely told her I wasn't an employee. She said, "But he got a bottle down for someone else." He looked at me. I nodded, and he said, "Well, that was awfully nice of him." She immediately came back with, "Well, make him give me his bottle." He looked at me as just as confused as I felt, and at this point I was just happy to not be alone in this Twilight Zone moment. He told me that he would take care of this and I was free to go, which did not go over well with her. But hey, I was free. Sometimes I can still hear her less than nice tone as I walk away. But I wanted that big bottle of olive oil. A couple things came out of this. I always smile when I think of polite grandma lady, and if the manager ever sees me in the store with olive oil in my basket or cart, he throws his hands up in an exaggerated manner and nopes out very quickly. Olive oil, ghee, Crisco, all these things that you have to cook with are way too expensive. Olive oil is super, super pricey. You're lucky if you can find it on sale, let alone a large bottle that's on sale. We buy ghee frequently now for our cooking because it has such a high smoke point. You can cook things at really high heats and it won't burn. Something we listened to in a different doctor's podcast said that doing it with olive oil is actually not good for you, but I still love olive oil. I love ones with basil flavor or garlic and basil, and we have one downstairs with rosemary in it. It's so good. So I can understand why somebody would be unhappy with not getting a large bottle for less price. Our stories have come to a close for today. If you enjoy this content, please click like or subscribe or leave a comment below. It helps my channel reach other people in the YouTube algorithm. Until we meet again, have a fetching day.